It's almost time, kids. The clock is ticking. Just 200 and something days till Halloween. Make sure you're in front of your pod sets because this is Speakeasily versus the 80s. We're the podcast that takes you on a journey through time and space, boldly going right up inside the business of our collective midlife crisis, where the nostalgic universe of 1980s trash cinema dwells. We get all up close and personal with the films that made you into the weirdo monster you are today. I'm Odessa Lil, beaming non-denominational space lasers at you from an undisclosed location in the Central Galaxy. With me, as always, are my comedy life partners and Druidic coven crew, Klingon Vanna White and Shecky Davis Jr.
Greetings and salutations.
Hello.
Hey, what's the actions, Jacksons?
The actions, Jacksons.
Well, there's two of you.
Oh, that makes sense, I guess.
Plural.
Nothing much. Just transmitting live from Stonehenge.
Oh, that's where you are.
I watched this Spinal Tap, and I made a little baby Stonehenge, and it's in my basement. So
Was it trodden upon by elves?
No,
Was trodden upon.
just little cats.
Like trodden upon by cats. That's
My
awesome.
little cats. They said this is Halloween. This is Halloween, and they. Oh, sorry, wrong movie.
Hey, all look same. You know what would be really
all look
cool is
same.
like a cardboard Stonehenge for the cats.
And we can shoot a movie. Call it
Cathenge.
Cathenge. Oh my God.
Cathenge.
Like mines.
I'm already making them their little cloaks.
Yes.
There you go. There you go.
Yes.
Their little
Kittens
hooded
must have
cloaks.
roads.
Actually, I follow on TikTok. I follow a cat, and all it is this black cat, and I guess their parent is a costumer or something, because every video is just this black cat strutting on the runway wearing a various different cape.
Oh, I've seen, yes.
Yes, love it.
Catwalk.
Yes, love it. So if we're wanting to do that, I am so down.
You said the magic compound word, TikTok. And apparently we are now on the TikTok, or we're trying to be as of last night.
Yeah.
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 We have a surprise for you, Klingon.
Yeah, we're on TikTok. I talked to her about it, and I was like, "Look, we should do this." And like a fish to water, she took to it, and she went in
peed
there.
all over it.
She really did. I was just like, "Girl," and she was just like, "I don't know how to do it. I'm scared." Neener. And then
I do not believe that Odessa Lil said she was scared.
No, because she was like,
And I'm always
No.
saying neener on a
no,
regular
because
basis.
she was just like, "Isn't this just for kids? I'm scared. How does this work?" And I was just like, "Why? How did you turn into an 80-year-old goat?" I'm like, "What's going on, lady?" But no,
well, it's been a tough year, okay?
Yeah, but she jumped on. We have two posts. I friended it, or liked it, or followed it. Or...
Klingon's naked in it. Like,
yes,
I just went.
Oh,
for
really?
it.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
we'll send it to you today.
She went crazy with it.
Speakeasily.tv on TikTok.
Yeah, on the TikToks.
I'm
just
so
search.
old, I forgot what it was. I was
just search. Yeah, just search the Speakeasily TV on the little magnifying glass at the bottom, and the two things will pop up. I mean, she's got the hashtag, she's got little captions and everything. I was like, damn, she's really like a whiz at this stuff. But you can, it's easy to learn that stuff when you're hunkered down in a bomb shelter in your parents' basement in Fresno. So she's got all the time in the world.
It's supposed to be a secret. She's in the
sorry,
part of the galaxy.
Sorry.
Undisclosed Central Galaxy location. Yeah, it's anyone familiar with the Speakeasily universe, or I should say multiverse, knows that we are in a basement in Fresno, but also in outer space.
Yes, we beam everywhere.
All possible, yes.
And we each have our own jar of peanut butter.
Well, of course, because you keep putting your tongue in yours.
Well, I keep finding curly hairs in mine.
Some of it is crunchy.
Most of it is not.
Speak for yourself.
Also up in the peanut butter today is today's guest. We have a guest, you guys. Be on your good behavior.
That's
I
awesome.
still have friends.
I feel so sorry for them. What kind of blackmail do you have on this person?
Oh, you won't believe the photos. Today's guest is a writer for the award-winning video game franchise Life is Strange. Not to mention an author of essays, interviews, and articles on film. And since no one else wanted to be, he's also the world's expert on Otto Preminger's Skidoo.
What?
I know. I highly recommend this movie if you'd like to see Jackie Gleason trip balls.
What?
Welcome to the show, Christian Devine.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
Why are you slowly backing out of the room right now?
It's my first Discord, so I thought that was the point. Don't we fight?
You're not wrong, buddy.
When do we start fighting?
Yeah. You're not wrong, my friend. You're not wrong.
We start fighting when we all need to use the bathroom at once and
Gotcha.
realize there's only one.
And because we're so cheap, it's only a half bathroom.
It's true. It's one of those toilet shower combos.
Oh God.
Which I've stayed in hostels that have those.
It's
like a bidet for your whole body.
It's very simple.
Which is really just a shower,
what
but whatever.
don't you get, Christian?
And then you have to waffle stomp your dues down the drain.
Well,
It was in the
I do
brochure.
have to be going now. Actually, I realize that.
It's okay, Christian.
Too late, buddy. Block the door.
Christian,
I
you
didn't
don't
know I
have
was
to
joining.
use your feet. We have
I
a
know I-
spatula to waffle stomp this stuff down.
You said Discord, not Pisscord, but okay. I'm
Whoa.
sorry.
Renaming
You
it.
were all going there, and that's where it goes.
That's our next
You've
platform.
gone too far. You must leave the spaceship.
Shit, he hasn't got far enough for us. Come on now.
Well, I got some questions for you, mister.
Okay.
Like, you've been writing for this video game, Life is Strange. And can you explain what that game is? Because I know life is strange, but why would we want to be playing a strange life game?
Because it's a strange world, and this game is very different. Life is Strange came out in 2014, and it was designed by a French company named Don't Nod, and their influences were narrative games, heavy narrative games, and also Twin Peaks and Mad Men and Breaking Bad and kind of Netflix series also.
Wow, for a video
So-
game.
Yeah, and so and I started writing for video games in the 90s, late 90s, and I was always hopeful that the technology would catch up, the writing would catch up the technology, because writing has always been in video games for a long time. It was always kind of secondary, because games by their nature are designed to be play, so the story element doesn't always fit with all games, and that's
Yeah, it's like put the thing in the box.
or
like
Pong
back
or
in the-
destroy this or
yeah.
that. I mean, and so I grew up with my friend John Romero, who was a whiz at computer programming. So when we were 15, I was in class. He was in front of me, like writing out code on yellow tablets, and I was drawing my comics and writing my stories. And John was selling video games to magazines when he was 15 and 16 already. He was making money as a game designer in high school in 1981.
Wow.
Yeah, so he and he left. He went to England shortly thereafter because his dad was in the military. But then he ended up creating the games Castle Wolfenstein, and then Doom and Quake. So it was great to go from John being us being nerds in school, making our Super 8 films and video films, and then John flying me out to Texas in 1994 and picking me up in his Ferrari, and taking me to his mansion in Texas. And yeah, that was I said, I told him, I go, this is what we paid for in school. This is worth all the years of being picked on, and being outcast, etc. And and I was pretty lucky, but some not so lucky. But yeah, so then John later on, he started his own company in Dallas, Texas called Ion Storm. Then he invited me to come write for his game Daikatana. So my place in Berkeley burned down. Then I moved to Texas the next day and started writing for video games. And it was a great experience. And then I got hired to write for another game from the same company called Deus Ex in Austin, and which was a very science fiction secret agent kind of conspiracy thriller game. And Deus Ex turned out to be a big, huge hit. And Dagatana turned out to be one of the biggest game disasters ever. So much of a disaster that I got invited on NPR to talk about it, and you can read about it for a
What
lot
kind of disaster, if you could sum
it
it
just
up?
it was a lot of a good intention, and just the company just went wrong in a few different ways, and
Mhm.
it was a different time period for game making, and things were still new, and the game didn't meet the expectations, and that happens, and there's that happens, in the game world. There's a lot of more games don't necessarily are not necessarily hits. It's a very expensive world, more than Hollywood, and even in a way, because it can take like 5 or 6 years to make a game, and it can cost like $500 million, $300 million. I mean, the prices are like, kind of insane. So after those, I went to Hollywood after that to focus on screenwriting, and at a certain point, I was like kind of missing, thinking, games. It's time for video games to start growing up, and it's time for video games to start dealing with the fact that the technologies are all there. Like, you in video games, you can do everything. There's nothing you can't do anymore. So you have to now like match the storytelling. You have to bring the storytelling up to date, and you
Yeah.
have to bring the fact that all video games can be just like in a film or music. You can have different genres of everything. You can have games like Doom where you just, when I play games a lot, I actually just like to blow up Nazi demons. That's very cathartic and fun for me.
Hey, who doesn't?
Exactly. And there's other times though when you want to play
Yeah.
like a really heavy narrative game, and games do have that, because D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, was a big influence in my writing, and I was a big D&Der, and I brought it to my school. In fact, introduced it to my elementary school, and they banned it like about a month later.
Good work.
Why?
It was a combination of all the kids, all of us played it during class and outside of class, and it was driving the teachers crazy. And then the satanic panic struck at the same time about how D&D was leading kids into the occult. And
Yes.
so,
For God's sakes.
and I really witnessed that firsthand. It was so ridiculous.
It totally did, though. I mean, you probably had an altar with a gelatinous cube.
Well, it was
on
so
it.
funny. I was telling the kids at our weekly ritual sacrifice, I'm like, come on,
Yeah.
you guys, this is not a big thing.
Take it seriously, people.
You're right. All right. I'm getting heat from the man who spilled the
Put
beans.
the blade down, okay? Pick up the Pez.
I think Marcy told her mom.
But D&D was a big influence, and choose your own adventure books, which were kind of like the early narrative kind of gaming, like kind of the background in a way. And so strangely enough, when I was thinking about games and returning back to them, I got one of my French friends, who is one of my biggest cheerleaders. He'd published one of my stories. I met him at a press conference for Deus Ex, and he turned out to be like my French soulmate friend. And she published a story of mine and translated it, and then later recommended me to the company Don't Nod, and said they were looking for an American screenwriter. And she said, you got to hire Christian Devine. So they read some of my scripts. We talked, blah, blah, blah. And I've never wanted a gig more in my life. And because when they sent over what they were doing, it was so everything I wanted gaming to be. It had female lead characters. It was basically Twin Peaks, meets, kind of all these Stephen King and Judy Blume and John Hughes. That's basically, so when I tell people at night, when people that don't play video games, so I don't play video games, well, Life is Strange is different. It's like a choose your own adventure book designed by David Lynch and Stephen King and John Hughes and Judy Blume, but designed as a Netflix interactive series. And right there you get it, kind of. And in fact, Stranger Things is a fan of Life is Strange, and there's actually a line of dialogue taken straight out of Life is Strange that they used in season 2 for one of the characters.
Oh, so it's your dialogue.
In this case, it is. It's literally my dialogue for a character named Max. It's
Whoa.
so funny, and Life is Strange. We called it Life is Stranger Things. When it came out. But there's also a nice zeitgeist going on. So actually, the game, and because the game had female leads, it was actually turned down by every publisher in the world.
God damn it.
They said we would. It's just, and it's just so, that was my problem in Hollywood. Actually, and it took me a while to kind of figure out why I wasn't cracking the code there, because 60-70% of my scripts have female leads. And it's not because I'm so woke or anything. I just like to write women characters. They're more interesting than men characters to me, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But that was working for me. And except for the fact that people would literally say, hey, we can't finance this with a woman as the lead. I'd hear that multiple times.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm like, do you know that women are like 52% of the world's audience? Like, why are you like, just why don't you be capitalist pigs, and just make movies for that market?
It's
And
like,
They are just
what about Alien?
well, that's
yeah,
what about any you can bring up any example of things, and but it's a weird things change. It was a weird shift going on. And it really did happen at the time I got Life is Strange, because there was this shift towards where female characters and more inclusive diversity and inclusion in the game world, which it hadn't been. And one of the reasons I left the game world in the 90s is because it really was a little boys world, and I did not like it. I did not like the attitude. And um and there were a lot of brilliant people and good people, but then there was a lot of kind of just old school misogyny and sexism and just kind of entitlement you know and I knew that would have to
sure.
to evolve at a certain, and it did because women came into the field, other people of color, you know diverse people came into the field to strengthen it. And
Yeah. It's happening in
so
video games, it's
yeah.
happening in comics, it's happening everywhere finally.
Yeah, and it was great to and so every game publisher turned down the game except for Square Enix, um, and they're a pretty big game publisher, and the game wasn't very. It was a very low budget game for games, so they were very smart, and they that was took a lot of vision for them to do that. And fortunately, it turned out, and we released it episodically because they wanted to create very wisely, create kind of to follow that Netflix formula, And there's always something. I mean, Charles Dickens figured this out, you know, like when you create a serial formula, you create kind of an audience, because people
Yeah.
want to know if they're interested in what you're doing, they want to know what happens after or what happens next. And so we released the episodes of Life is Strange once every 3 to 4 months or so, and that created this really cool buildup of attention. And it was like Twin Peaks in a way, people wondering, creating all these theories, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the game turned out to be a really huge for not huge in the sense of like a Call of Duty type game, but for what it was, a really big hit. And the best thing, of course, they got critically acclaimed, and we got the first Peabody Award for a video game, and we got the BAFTA for storytelling and multiple awards for the
Amazing.
writing. Yeah, and the,
Yeah.
the Peabody to me was the greatest award we could have gotten in a way. All awards are great, honestly. The Peabody meant so much to me because it's so much part of my background of my writing. My influences are so much of Patty Chayefsky
Mhm.
and Twin Peaks is a Peabody, and all the shows we referenced in the game, et cetera. So yeah. So long story short, the game was very successful, and then we made a sequel, Life is Strange 2, and very political about two boys who have to go on the run after a policeman murders their father. They go back to Mexico. And now I'm working on 2 NDA projects, game projects. But yeah, Life is Strange has been very good to me, and has actually, I would say honestly helped changed, a big element of gaming.
Oh, that is so cool.
And you got to work with a lot of
I
really cool
did,
people.
and the best thing, honestly, is that I got to. I mean, I've all as an artist, as a writer, I was frustrated in Hollywood for all the reasons mentioned, and I would, I was making, I did, relatively well occasionally, but didn't break through in the way I was trying to, and that my friends certainly did, and part of it was honestly because I was putting female characters in the leads in my scripts. It was that, I would option my scripts, but then we'd hear this over and over again. But I always said, well, maybe they'll discover me like, the French or the English always discover American artists, before the Americans do. They really do.
Yeah.
Europeans and they saw film noir for what it was first. The French did.
What does it mean that you option your scripts?
It means that somebody says, when I first moved to LA, I was represented by CAA, the big agency, for my script about video games, actually. And that's still a super cool script. It was unbelievable that nobody bought it and made it. But 9/11 happened right when it went out, and it was a bad time for a script about a giant building being attacked by monsters with helicopters blowing up around it and people falling out of the
Ah.
building. It's a bad time for that,
Yeah.
and rightfully so. And but it got me a lot of attention anyway. But I got tired of just like agents blocking me. I always said, agents just kind of are stopping me. And so I wrote a Bigfoot script. At the time, nobody was talking about Bigfoot. Nobody cared about Bigfoot in 2001 in Hollywood. Trust, I was there. Nobody. I was saying there's got to be a good Bigfoot. Nobody's made a good Bigfoot movie in years, ever. And I tried to get some of my friends to co-write a Bigfoot script, and nobody wanted to. They go, "That's a dumb idea." And I go, "No, it's a brilliant idea. Bigfoot's going to come back in a huge way." So I wrote this killer script, this really cool Bigfoot script. I still think it's the coolest Bigfoot script ever written that I've seen so far. and I wrote it to get option. I wanted to get made, not, and so I had a friend who is a producer at Sci-Fi Channel, and I go, this is perfect for Sci-Fi Channel. And so she passed it over to the producer, and within a day I got a call. They said they want to make the movie. I'm like, what? It was like a Hollywood moment. It was crazy, and it was all the other Hollywood moments, the deal fell apart at the last second due to some really bad decisions by the producers.
You know what it really was,
Tell
right?
me.
John Lithgow heard about it, and he's like, "I'll be damned if he was going to make another Harry and the Hendersons."
I knew that he was after. He's like, "It's mine, it's mine, it's mine." But
So do they own the script now, and you can never use it?
Yeah, the rights went back to me, but I learned a lot of lessons. So basically, optioning is that the producers or somebody says, "I will pay you X amount of money to have the rights for the script to 6 months to a year or so, whatever deal you make," and it can be for no money, depending on the producers and what you want to do, what you feel comfortable with. So usually I'll get some money, but not the big money, because when you sell the script, that's when you get the big Writers Guild money. It's good, when they have an option, they just take it out and they raise the money for it. So it can be
so
it's good
optioning
and
and
it's bad.
selling are two different things.
Totally different things, and you can
Okay.
get a good option. I mean, you can, if for certain writers of a certain stature, if the script's really hot, you can, your option price can be really good, but generally option is going to be in like the $1,000 to $5,000 range. If you're lucky, but that's usually what I would get for for scripts. I wrote a script for for a Skinamax movie. It was too good for them.
Hot.
It was too good for them. They told me that in the meeting. They told me, they go, Christian, we're just making McDonald's burgers here. And I go, but I gave you an In-N-Out for the same price. They love that, but they didn't make the movie.
Did it also involve Bigfoot?
It was called Paint Me Deadly, and right there it tells you how great it was and why they weren't going to make it.
Oh, nice.
But that screams like TNA. Like,
I
Paint
thought
Me
it was
Deadly.
hot.
Yeah.
I thought for the genre, they gave me the scripts that they wanted to duplicate. A manager had read some of my stuff. He said, "Hey, I know this isn't the greatest work, but you can make like $5,000, or so a script writing these out." And they're, I have a lot of writers that do this. They're pretty good writers, and you can have fun with them. Like, I'm not a snob. I'll do that. I can write a good Skinamax movie, and if it's not degrading or anything. And they gave me their list of requirements. And my favorite has always been, to this day, girl on girl action, highly recommended.
Extra bonus point.
So basically,
also highly recommend
so basically what you're telling us is you wrote like a weird ass David Lynch Twin Peaks Skinamax skin flick movie, and people were like, "This is a little too cerebral for us."
All I gotta say is that my sex scene in the police interrogation room with the double mirrors is amazing, and I don't think anybody's done that yet. But it was too good for them.
I don't think I've seen that in a Nina Hartley film.
Oh, well, there you go. See, maybe I
That's
was
him.
okay. Well, shit.
But-
I was having a flashback then.
But I'm really curious. Like in that scene, where does the midget sit?
Off screen.
Okay.
Yeah, in the audience.
The video
In my
surveillance.
lap.
The sinful dwarf is watching from the surveillance room.
There you go. Sinful dwarf. He's like,
The sex dwarf.
I'm just saying Warwick Davis does not get enough work. Is all I'm saying.
But Hollywood's a rough place. It's hard, and that's why it was very attractive. I mean, to be the video game industry, it has a lot of freedom, and I've always thought it's like the next frontier for writers a lot, because storytellers, because there's no rules in it, and there really isn't, and so everything is really open up, and there still is. It's kind of like, because games, they don't really know what to do with writers a lot, and they're just kind of now learning the rules of how writers can work with games, and there's more standardized kind of acceptance and development process that people understand now with writers. But it's interesting because in Hollywood, you think a lot of screenwriters would be attracted to games, but it turns out that a lot of screenwriters, when they go to games, they don't do very well on them. Like the big screenwriters, there's a few big ones that have gone to video games and they don't last. Because I think I'm not sure why. I think you really have to have this ability to do branching narrative, and it's not easy for everybody. And I use choose your own adventure books as my kind of template. So to me, when I was writing for Life is Strange, it was like, this is like the greatest choose your own adventure book, you know.
Yeah.
And but it can be kind of, you know, a different mindset to go from you have to picture 3 different stories going off at once, or 2 or 4, you know. And it is, you know, when you see the branching trees we had to do for Life is Strange, I mean, it's just, you know, it's a million words, you know, it's huge, it's massive.
Well, you're
So
talking
yeah,
about branching stories and multiple universes all existing at the same time. I'm starting to see why you chose today's movie.
yes, full circle.
Here's my
Well,
segue.
no. Well, actually, I was very surprised that you chose this movie. You know, being from your background, I totally thought we'd do like Joystick or The Wizard or something like that.
Well, we
But
could talk about how bad video game movies are and how they've never duplicated.
Joysticks.
But we can certainly tie in Tron, because I was telling Audrey before that 1982 really was the most amazing genre year of the 80s.
Yeah.
Blade Runner, The Thing, Tron, Conan the Barbarian, the Dark Crystal, Creep Show. You can just you start forgetting how many movies came out that year. E.T., you know, this is The Thing, of course. So there's all these movies,
Yeah.
and Tron, of course, was the first big kind of like video game movie. And I saw it opening week, and immediately I was like, bullshit,
Huh.
you know, bullshit. It just felt, it was like, because I didn't buy Jeff Bridges for 1 second. You know, I love Jeff Bridges, but I didn't buy him as that. The movie doesn't work for me. I just watched it recently. I didn't like it then. I don't like it now. And I love Wendy Carlo's music. I love the design of it, but it's not a good movie, you know. And people can have nostalgia for all they want, but it's objectively not good. It doesn't work. And I was in the audience, and it didn't work. We didn't like
People
it.
have nostalgia for all sorts of shit.
Yeah, that's why we have our show. I mean,
exactly.
we're nostalgic for shit.
I can just
and even growing up, I would make jokes about how in the future, you know, about how they're gonna have, like, you know, they're gonna have Xanadu, you know, Criterion letterbox collections. You know, I call it desperate nostalgia. And I love Xanadu, by the way. I'm not bagging on Xanadu. I love Xanadu. But I call it desperate nostalgia. There's certain elements of nostalgia where people are like really desperate to describe things as being better than they were. Of course, when you're a kid, if you see Tron, if you're 10 or 12, but I was 13, and it sucked to me, you know. And so, but I was picky as a kid anyway, and my friends didn't like to go to the movies with me anyway.
I can just see 13-year-old Christian at the end of the movie, like at the end of the movie, standing up. It's like, this is bullshit, my good man. Just storming off. I'll be in the arcade.
I want my $1.50 back.
No, I was actually I wasn't that I was developing the experience. I loved being in the movies. I have a photographic memory for film. But I every time I see a film, and it's been since I was a kid, I remember that experience. So I remember it goes into my cells. I remember the entire experience. I remember the audience reaction to everything. And I never need to see a film. It's rare that I need to go back and ever see a film again. Like I haven't seen, you know, there's certain films that I never need to see again because I saw it once, and even if I liked it, you know, I saw Full Metal Jacket once when it came out. I'll never watch it again. You know, I never need to see it again. I don't love it enough to see it again. Actually, that's one reason too. Whereas Halloween 3, I've seen probably multiple times.
Really?
You know? Yeah, but other films, you know, E.T. I've seen twice. You know, I saw it once when it came out, and then once later. You know, so but I remember every single thing about E.T. You know, every single thing about it. You know, but and so when I look at a film, I'm always like, as a kid, Jaws taught me to kind of start watching the audience along with the movie, because Jaws was the first time as a kid. My aunt took me to see it when I was 7. Thanks, Doris. and
there's always a Doris in every family.
She's great, but taking me to see Jaws.
Yeah.
You know, it was good and it was bad, but I remember that was the first time that I remember like paying attention to the audience, and I was watching the audience response to the movie, and that fascinated me. So since then I've always been like an audience watcher. So you know, when I go to the movies, I'm also gauging the response in a way of the audience and seeing how they, you know, feel about it, or if I can tell the audience is engaging. Like with Halloween 3, I could tell that they were confused.
Excellent. Well, let's get to this movie.
Let's do this.
Okay, what do Stonehenge, robot assassins, melting heads, and novelty salesmen all have in common? Nothing. Except this film that reminds us to fear the Irish. 1982's Halloween 3 Season of the Witch.
Or How to Kill a Franchise. I mean, I don't know.
It
think
didn't though.
Didn't, but it was kind of funny.
It kind
So
of,
I went on Shudder because I have
kinda.
Shudder, and they had Halloween 1, 2, 4, and 5.
Yeah. They don't have the rights to 3 for some reason.
Oh, I thought that they were just like, nope.
It's a
No.
superior movie, I think. I enjoy 3 better than any other Halloween experience. I'll just leave now.
Yeah, and that's well, I mean, there's only 2 Halloween movies to me, Halloween 1 and Halloween 3. That's it. I don't count any of the other films.
I
They
don't
don't
think I've
exist
ever
for me.
seen any of the other ones.
Yeah, and I don't care for the other ones. And Halloween 2 was such a, disappointment to me. And I once again saw it in theater when it came out, and it was like a Friday the 13th movie in a hospital. And there's 3 good
Yeah.
scenes in the movie: the great credit scene with the great music, and scary pumpkin opening. The scene where one of the most morbid scenes in any horror film, and I love it because it's so morbid and true, is when the nurse in the hospital slips, but it's in a pool of blood, and he knocks himself
Ugh.
out. I mean, it's such a creepy, weird. It's the one
Ah.
moment in Halloween 2 that's like, genuinely feels like surreally creepy, and then the ending when they cut to Mr. Sandman as the theme song. Brilliant little moment, ending. But there's just that's it. And then so I was very happy when I heard about Halloween 3 because I was a big monster kid, so I knew that Halloween 3 was going to be not Michael Myers
Yeah.
sequel. And so I was reading Fangoria at the time. And so my big connection to Halloween 3 is that the same issue where they do the Halloween 3 story has the Evil Dead cover story. Evil Dead also came out in 82. And that's the issue of Fangoria that my name is in because I was a finalist in the Draw the Thing contest for Fangoria. So I had my first published appearances in Fangoria, and the first time I ever submitted anything was to Fangoria, and I got in there in their Evil Dead issue and their Halloween 3 issue.
Hey,
So
belated congratulations on
thank
that.
you. I
Yeah.
still that's still the greatest thing as far as I'm concerned. That's my greatest accomplishment is getting my name in Fangoria to Draw the Thing.
Yeah.
But they also were advertising the Don Post masks for sale too before the movie because
Yes.
the Halloween 3, Tommy Lee Wallace very cleverly tied in the title Halloween 3 into having the Halloween 3 masks.
The merchandising.
The merchandising. And so they were based on 2 existing Don Post masks, the witch and the skull. And then they did the pumpkin mask specifically for the movie. And so they sold them in Fangoria. And I was a spoiled kid, but I couldn't get that $34.95 mask. Yeah, and I saw Halloween 3 on opening weekend on a Saturday, and it was great. And I think our audience actually responded to the film better than probably maybe other audiences because I did hear people murmuring, about Michael Myers in the beginning of the film. I literally heard it, and then but in the opening scene it says October 23rd, Saturday, Northern California, and it was October 23rd, Saturday,
Whoa.
and we were in Northern California when we saw the film. And so the audience started like tittered, and I think we all kind of got in the spirit with them immediately. Like you felt kind of like, it was kind of a bonding moment, I think, for the audience. Yeah, and the opening is brilliant and great, and and John Carpenter and Alan I can never say his last name, Haworth, Howarth. My New York accent kills those R's for me. This is co-composer, but it's great. And for 1982, once again, really, really visionary to make this about computers and focus on that. And it should have been a big, huge hit on this opening, the opening credits alone. I think the thing was, once again, calling it Halloween 3 Season of the Witch and not setting it up onto what it was. There was no setup at all as to what they wanted to do. And Carpenter and Deborah Hill, the producer of Halloween, they did not want to make another Halloween film after Halloween 2. And so they said they would do it if they could make it like an anthology film. They wanted to do a yearly series of Halloween style films, like, really great idea. And it wasn't a crazy idea at the time because they were making Creepshow and other things had come out before, and Tales from the Crypt from the 70s had been big hits. So it wasn't a crazy idea to do that, but they just didn't set it up for what they were trying to do. And
It really felt like it came out of left field,
Yeah, and like I said, for a monster kid like me, I was from day one, I knew what was going on, no surprise. But if you didn't know anything about it and you walked in, you would be confused.
I was definitely confused.
Yeah.
So where's Jason?
Well, yeah, when did you see it? When did you see it? When you were confused by it?
So I saw it when I was a kid. So my mom was like, I love it to death, but she really took that kind of like if an R rating, as long as you were an adult, the kid could just sit there and just deal with it. So seriously, my mom took me to, because babysitters are expensive. So my mom just took me to a lot of horror films when I was a kid. Like I remember sitting in when I was a kid watching double feature of Hellraiser and The Lost Boys, and my mom's reaction was just close your eyes if you're scared, and I'm like, what? So I saw that in the theater when I was a kid, and I was just like, why are we watching this? So I had no idea what was going on, and I just got scared.
It really would be. How old were you?
When that came out, I think I was like 9.
Wow.
And because my mom was just like, just if you don't like it, close your eyes. And I'm just like, thanks.
For the whole movie?
Right? And I'm just like, why am I here? Like Lost Boys.
Cenobites are actually scary.
Yeah, Lost Boys was actually pretty cool. I was able to
Fun.
pretty much watch most of that because I like the Corys, So, but Hellraiser, I was like, what the hell are we doing here? Oh yeah, like Heels Have Eyes, all that shit.
Wow. No, Heels Have Eyes. That's pretty. That's it's funny because my parents were the same way, but it was more bizarre because I remember growing up in going to my relatives in like Rock Springs, Wyoming. Like people forget like the Midwest had cable and HBO long before everybody did, So it was around in the early 70s, and so we were watching HBO in 72, 73, I remember. And
that was long before us.
Yeah, and I remember, I'm a little older here, but I remember watching, the most inappropriate movies as a 5, 6, 7-year-old with my relatives in the room. This horrifying movie called House by the Lake with Brenda being terrorized by these assaulters, and then Taxi Driver, watching that when I
Oh my gosh,
all these, but a Town That Dreaded Sundown, which terrified me. Scary, one of the scariest 70s movies ever. Still to this day, scary fucking movie.
Never even
they actually remade it recently.
Yeah, my auntie and my mom loved the weird satanistic movies. So that one where the kid gets possessed by the devil in the computer and
Evil Speak.
Yeah, Evil Speak, and there's this one with like this cemetery. It's really bizarre. This is all on VHS, and so I'd have to go and stay with my aunt. My mom would go out, and she'd put on these movies and like watch them, and I'm sitting there like, why am I watching this?
Your mom sounds like the greatest person in the world. I wish my mom had. My mom was cool because she would just let me watch it, but I was fortunate because I was lucky because my friends were not allowed to watch a lot of the stuff that I was. My friends would come to my house because I had. I was allowed to do everything basically, and so, well, I thought it taught me a lesson about like letting your kids alone and they won't rebel. My mom, it's like, what was I going to rebel against? Being allowed to go watch every horror movie ever made or getting heavy metal and monster magazines and toys. It's like, there was nothing to rebel against. I'd rather be at home on a Friday night watching a monster movie anyway. But definitely, but I liked that as a kid watching all those scary, but it probably not everything good for you to see when you're probably not good to see Deliverance when you're 6.
Nope.
Oh yeah, no. I'm surprised that Shecky doesn't like horror movies now. Like we can't get him to watch horror.
No, it's. I watched a lot of them when I was a kid. So
I think why.
Did I?
Well, no. It's just what happened was so I watched it with my mom, and I used to like freak out because I was like, no, And then towards and then when I got into high school, me and 2 of my really close friends we'd get together, and this was our Friday nights. We'd get to the house, of course. You always had that one friend whose mom either wasn't there because she worked nights, or she just didn't care because she trusted your kids, And so she would go off, and we'd watch like Blood Dinah and Franken Hooker and all these movies, and it would be like Friday night. We'd walk over to the video store, get Dead or Alive. They didn't care. Like we were like 14, and they'd rent us R-rated movies. Get back to the house, order the Pizza Hut pepperoni deep dish special, and eat and play Sega Genesis and watch shitty movies. So I did that for like almost the entirety of my high school years.
Those were the days.
Yeah. And then as I got older, I was like, I don't know, something clicked in my head, and it's just like I just can't stomach it anymore. Like I can still watch slasher films. Those are funny, slasher films, but any kind of demonic weird shit, people's faces melting stuff. Oh, can't do it.
Okay, well,
Those are my favorite
I just
Yeah,
can't do it. I'm just like, I'm cool later. It's like, I don't know what happened, but that recessive kind of black gene kind of clicked in, and it's just like, no, this is the devil. No,
Well,
Oh
I
my
don't know.
God.
Because as a kid, The Exorcist was like terrifying. It was
no,
and
Was terrifying.
cannot
well,
watch it.
what
It's
actually
really
scared me was the book because I could not see the movie as a kid. And I think this might have been even before the movie came out or at the same time. The book, if you look at the original paperback, it's got this photograph, this blurry photograph of a girl's face. And that fucking photograph is scary. And to this day, still scares me. But I remember as a
Yeah.
kid, I'd walk in the room and I'd see that fucking paperback. I'd have to flip the book around or get rid of it or throw it or tear the cover up, I think, eventually.
Ha Well, let me ask each of you this. Where does this rank as a horror film? Do you find this to be a particularly scary
No,
horror film?
no,
No.
No.
Halloween 3 is not
no.
scary, and that's probably one of the reasons also why it didn't work because it's not. It's in fact. So Deborah Hill, the producer, she said that this was a pod movie, not a knife movie, and that's exactly right. It's Invasion of the Body Snatchers to the
Yeah,
point where the
Yeah.
Oh,
town
yeah.
that they actually go to, Colonel Cochrane's town, where they make the masks, is called Santa Mira, which is the name of the town in Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Right.
I
So-
didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah. So there it's
Oh.
definitely so we could talk about the writer too, because that's a big part of what Halloween 3 is the writer Nigel Neal, who wrote
Who didn't want his name on the
he
script?
took his name off the script. And
Yeah.
Nigel Neal is a very famous in England, very famous. He's like I don't want to say the Stephen King of England. He's been but definitely like what has a huge influence on horror and science fiction in America too, because he wrote this very famous BBC radio serial called called Quatermass Experiment that ran as a very popular radio serial. Then they did a TV version, which captured the entire England attention about an astronaut who goes into space and brings back this spore that takes him over. And it stars,
Hmm.
and it's about this scientist Quatermass, this kind of objective cold scientist. And then they made another Quatermass 2, made a film version, and they made them with Brian Donlevy as an American Quatermass, which Nigel Neal hated. But there's a school of thought that people really like Brian Donlevy as Quatermass. I do too. I like him. He's kind of a gruff, loudmouth, and barking scientist, but kind of this ugly American scientist. But it fits. It's kind of a cool character. But Nigel Neal, his gift was really like he was one of the first writers to merge like the M.R. James supernatural gothic ghost stories with modern technology. So that was his bent. It was merging the modern technological world with some kind of element of the supernatural.
Oh,
And
so
Yeah.
so that's you're talking about like Pulse, some of the Japanese stuff with like the Ring or some kind of like there's something like 'cause I guess with Pulse it was like there was something supernatural living
It's
in
more
the
like the
light
ghost
pictures.
in the machine. It's
Yeah,
more
okay.
like it's the
Okay.
ghost in the machine. And the best example of it is so they made the third Quatermass film, which they titled in 1967. Hammer made it, and in England it was called Quatermass in the Pit, and they released it in America as 5 Million Years to Earth because nobody knows who the fuck Quatermass is in America. And that's a terrible title anyway. But I remember Quatermass. I remember the movie as a kid growing up because it was always on TV late at night, and it was always kind of like a little bit of a boring movie for me. It wasn't. It was more cerebral, so I never really got into it until I discovered Nigel Neal and what a great writer he was, and what a great movie Quatermass in the Pit is. One of the best Hammer films of all time, and presupposes this idea that Martians actually colonized the Earth in the past, and that we are descendants from Martians.
Yeah.
An idea that Kubrick actually uses in 2001, the same year. Is very interesting. And then and Neil's his greatest achievement is this a TV movie for the BBC called The Stone Tape from 1972 with Jane Asher, about this team of electronics experts who are trying to create this next electronic medium, but they're doing it in this haunted room using this haunted stone. Fucking
Haha,
scary, and I
connection.
highly recommend. You can watch it on YouTube. I highly recommend you watch it. It's one of the scariest ghost stories ever made. I've always been wanted. I hate to even say this out loud, but I've always wanted to remake it, and it's ripe for a remake. And I couldn't get the rights to it. I actually tried to get the rights to it a while ago, but yeah, really brilliant. And so I think that and Nigel Neal's always he's been very popular, in his own way in England.
Is the inclusion of Stonehenge his idea
No,
then?
and that's what's interesting
Huh.
about the script is that so Nigel Neal doesn't have an affinity. He doesn't like to be called a science fiction writer or horror. He never liked it. He's a typical curmudgeonly kind of Englishman, Wales guy, and
Another generation.
Yeah,
Totally.
and
Yeah.
it's too bad because he went to his first science fiction convention in the 70s, in the late 70s, and met a lot of his fans, and he was so horrified that he wrote an entire miniseries about that you can watch. I can't remember the title. The title has got it's the name of McKitnick or something. It's about a guy who's visited by aliens and he becomes like a true believer. And kind of a bitter, he really, yeah, he was kind of a bitter. He didn't like, he didn't really like his fan base and didn't like being associated.
That's
You know,
crappy.
it's weird because you hear it's mixed things. You hear he did appreciate it, and clearly in interviews you can tell that he appreciates people that like his work, and he seems congenial and nice guy. But he was horrified he was always horrified by youth. He wrote this script in the 60s called The Big Big Giggle, which almost got made multiple times by a lot of big directors. And it was about a suicide cult. These kids take this suicide drug that gets you so wired that you kill yourself. And it's kind of a great
Whoa.
idea, but you could see why they just in the end, like, they could just see copycats, that's really what stopped it from
Yeah.
happening. And I read the script and it's pretty brutal. But Neil never liked the 60s hippies. And so a lot of his response was against generational. But at the same time, he was very progressive and he was very anti-military, very kind of socialist, and definitely fair, I think, to young people in a lot of his work. As he was as mean to older people as he was to young people, and he certainly has
Equal
Sure.
opportunity
equal opportunity
hater.
offender, yeah.
Yes.
And Halloween 3 shows it because he obviously doesn't like kids. Yeah. But yeah, so the Stonehenge was
Yeah.
not in there, and that was added by Tommy Lee Wallace. So Nigel Neal's original draft. Carpenter has always loved Nigel Neal, and his work is bigly influenced by him. I can't believe I fucking used that word.
You used
I
bigly.
cannot believe. Please
Bigly.
edit that out.
Never.
I think I'm going to
Yeah,
put it
thank
on
you. Just
repeat.
edit that out.
Yeah.
Bigly.
Yeah, and so Prince of Darkness, Carpenter's movie, is a total Nigel Neal movie, and in fact, the screenplay is credited to one Martin Quatermass. I will let you figure out who wrote the screenplay. And
Sure.
Nigel Neal was not happy with that credit, though.
Um,
He did not like.
Too close.
Yeah, he wasn't happy with what. So Carpenter's credit, brought Nigel Neal to Hollywood. So did Joe Dante. They hired Nigel Neal to write a 3D remake of Creature from the Black Lagoon that was going to be produced by John Landis and directed by Joe Dante. And they did test footage for that even. And then Universal decided to make Jaws 3D instead.
Aw.
Can you? Rick Baker designed a suit. So there is footage of Rick Baker's creature suit in 3D. Can you imagine we
Aw.
lost that to Jaws 3D?
Saw that in the theater too.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. Yeah. But I would have rather seen an opening night, but I'd much rather see the creature from Black Lagoon. But now Junior wrote a script for that, which sounded like it was more like what was the Guillermo del Toro movie?
The water.
Yeah, the water thing. Yeah, the water thing. It sounds like it was much
Taste of
Yeah, something like
water or the
yeah,
dance of
yeah.
water or something.
We even reviewed it and we
I
can't
know, I
remember.
can't remember
Sex
at all.
and water.
Shape of water.
But it,
Or
Sex.
Amelie fucks a
yeah,
Yeah,
but basically
Amelie
it
fucks
was
a
more
fish.
like that, where the creature is more humanized and like it's about their capture more and their and Neil was very humanist about that because he did a really great BBC series movie called The Creature that they turned into a film called The Abominable Snowman: The Himalayas with Peter Cushing. It's an excellent film, despite the title. Excellent film, and very thoughtful, and warns man about messing around with creatures that they know not about. So he wrote a script. So Carpenter loved his work and wanted to work with him. So he wrote Halloween 3, which is basically pretty much the story that you see in the movie now. It's still the same story, but almost all the dialogue was changed and the Stonehenge was added, which is interesting because I would have thought for sure that would have been part of the original Nigel Neal script. And Carpenter didn't like it because he thought the script was really anti-Irish. And
It is.
well, can you imagine the first draft? Because Carpenter at the time was like, geez, Nigel Neal was really. But then I watched the Stone tape and a couple other Nigel Neal things, and he does make fun of the Irish quite a bit.
So British.
Well, I think he's from Wales, yeah. So he's an Islander too. But what I just
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. But what I just found today, I just found some amazing Halloween 3 trivia, which I'm so excited about, which is that Dan Harley, who plays Connell Cochran,
Mhm.
he said in an interview that he was not impressed with the film, but he loved playing Connell Cochran, which is clear that he loves playing the character.
Mhm.
And he goes, and he uses a Cork County accent for Connell Cochran. And my family, my dad's side is from Cork County, which is the rebel county. They call it the rebel county in Ireland. So I love the fact that I've got some Connell Cochran maybe floating around.
So it's like tiddly tar, tiddly tar, tiddly tar. Wait.
Exactly. That's their national anthem.
So, but Carpenter rewrote the script extensively with Tommy Lee Wallace and Nigel Neal. Said take my name off it, and there was almost none of the violence. Of course, all that was added. All the gore.
What about the robot guys?
They were part of the script.
Okay,
they
cool.
were part of the script.
Never understood them. Never understood them.
Well, once again, they don't. This is where the script fails. Is that, and even at the time, it's like Halloween 3 is not a great movie to me. I would never call it one of those ones like, oh, it's an undiscovered masterpiece. It's not, but it is a really great Halloween movie, and it is a great horror movie, and it's a great movie for what it is.
Horror actually is really good.
Yeah, and
all the horror shtick is amazing.
But I think the gore does distract in a way, in the way that Halloween 2, like when the nurse is getting scalded and dunked into the hot. I was like, I hated that movie so much of that scene. It's like
we really don't have much gore in this movie.
No.
In fact, a little kid's head melts, but we're kind of okay with it.
Hotel room, that was pretty
That
shocking.
freaked me out.
Yeah, I think Halloween 2 has got some really
misfire.
good effective gore effects that are shockingly fun. But even Tom Atkins, the star of the film, and Tom
Great
Berman,
actor. Great actor.
Great. He's great. And Tom Berman, who did the makeup effects, he said it's not it's not like like sadistic gore. It's fun gore, like The Thing. It's comic book gore. It's EC gore, so that's what I like about it, because it's more. It's so over the top. You can't take it seriously. It's like goofy.
It was pretty well done.
Yeah, it's great, and
yeah.
and technically it was really well
yeah,
done.
and in fact, if you watch Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, if you've seen it,
Yes.
there's a spoiler alert, Brad Pitt throws a dog food can at one of the Manson killers and splits her lips open. Now there's a cut to when she's on the ground. It's a side angle of her lips split open after that. Now I would advise you to take that shot and put it right next to the shot in Halloween 3 of the woman in bed after she gets her lips split open by the Silver Shamrock label. It's the same. That's Tarantino's tribute to Halloween 3.
Oh wow!
I mean, I'm not.
Nice.
I have no proof of that outside of that shot, but I know that shot of that split open lips, that's Halloween 3. I mean, and I know Tarantino knows that shot. So
Sure.
I was going to say,
wasn't that Marge who gets her
yes,
face
Marge,
split?
the toy
Yeah.
salesperson, and that's a great moment. But the kid getting melted, that's still a shocking moment, I think. And people might at the time it was, and the time too, gory films had a much different kind of, pedigree and how they were perceived, because there was such a total Siskel and Ebert led attack on slasher films and gore films. The MPAA was totally brutal on
it's also such taboo to kill children.
Yeah, well, that particularly, yeah, absolutely, and so the MPA went after all the Friday the 13th films were cut to the bone, no pun intended, but they were completely once again, Friday the 13th Part 3 in 3D, my favorite Friday the 13th film, 1982. Another once again, and if Halloween 3 in 3D would have been 3D, maybe it would have been. It would have been a bigger hit, but it cost $2.5 million in 1982, and it made $15 million. That's actually a pretty huge profit, but it was perceived to be, because it was the lowest grossing Halloween film ever. It still is, basically. Then it was because people didn't understand it. And even the producer, Erwin Yablans, he straight up says in interviews, he goes, stupid move. Because I don't know why they did it, dumb. But that's a businessman talking, and the artist would say, you got to give them points for trying. I wish critics, Siskel and Ebert was brutal on Carpenter in the 80s. And people forget that. People like Roger Ebert a lot, and I like Roger Ebert a lot, but Roger Ebert stopped people from seeing Carpenter films in the 80s. He stopped people from seeing The Thing and Big Trouble in Little China. You know what I mean? I remember.
They're great movies.
Yeah, but they were critically despised and reviled to the point where people wouldn't go see them because they saw Siskel and Ebert say thumbs down, and that was it. It was done. How can you imagine 1982 being a critic telling people not to go see The Thing? but that's what they did. I remember watching the review. Thumbs down, the thing.
Scared the shit out of me.
Yeah, and I remember in the theater, just loving the movie and me saying out loud, "Oh my god, the special effects, they were so great," and and the movie,
Such a fantastic
but it bombed
movie, and
so
even
bad.
the end
It
is
bombed because it came out a week after
because they're
ET. It came out a week
assholes.
after ET.
Oh
Bad timing.
Yeah.
no.
Bad,
Uh-uh.
and the same studio
Mhm.
released ET Universal, which is bizarre. They should have released the thing obviously in the fall. It's a cold winter movie. Release it at Halloween. It would have been a big hit. And they had, I know, once again, like the kind of weird nostalgia corrections that people have today. The poster for the thing that geeks today kind of lionized with this awful shitty poster of the parka monster with a light coming out of his eyes. It's like a shitty poster. That movie helped the movie bomb, and they originally had a much cooler poster which shows cracks in the ice and it says man is the warmest place to hide. Really awesome.
Oof.
Right there.
Ooh,
It's like
good
that's as good as the
God.
alien, almost as good as in space. It's almost as good, and it told you
Gary.
and they printed those posters up. Those were all the early pre-release posters, and they were everywhere. I'd seen them in magazines, and stuff. And then when the movie came out, it was this awful dopey Drew Sturzman drawn in one day parka monster with light glowing out of its eye. And it looked like, and I remember in the paper, opening the paper up and seeing that ad, like it looked, you don't know what the fuck this movie is. And it looked like some cheapo B movie. It didn't look like anything good, but I knew Carpenter, of course, so I was there, but if you didn't know it, you would just think, what is this thing? So yeah, Carpenter had a bad 80s run, and Halloween 3, definitely didn't help. But the fact that they were trying to do something different, that the fact that they wanted to make it, give the audience something different, you have to applaud that. They weren't trying to be cynical. They were being totally the opposite of
Yeah.
that. They were saying, hey, we can make an anthology style film, which I still think is such a great idea. It's such a visionary idea that maybe they can't do it. It's too good an idea. It's too cool an idea to have a yearly series of Halloween style horror films under the auspices umbrella of the Halloween name. Why couldn't you do that?
Now we have stuff like Haunting of Hill House, Haunting of blah blah blah. That series.
Yeah, American Horror Story.
Yeah, and there's 1,000 iterations of, again, some movies just come out. Carpenter's always had this gift and curse of being kind of a visionary with his ideas, and they always kind of catch up. Like Big Trouble in Little China. I saw Big Trouble in Little China opening day. One of the best theatrical experiences of my entire life. Like in my top 3. I had so much fun watching that movie in the theater. I was so there. The audience had so much fun, and I thought it was going to be a huge hit. And it just bombed. It bombed. And I would be dragging people to the movies, and the critics were just attacking it. I couldn't believe it. I was like, my finger is not on the pulse of America.
But what are
at
your
this
but what are
time.
your but what are your thoughts of movies like the Conjuring series and The Nun and all these other like serial type movies that are building off of this one central idea? Because I never knew that, like, the whole Conjuring universe, and I know that every big thing is about universes now.
Yeah.
And I think that if we were to get a really nice, slasher type, anthology or something, an anthology, I think it would be really wanted right now, because the populace has just been kind of conditioned, to look for the sequel, to look for the next thing, or to look for hidden things, that we could possibly see in the next movie. It's really this weird kind of like, it's like you're watching a movie only in anticipation for the next movie. It's really weird,
Well, that's kind of like
nowadays.
the MCU formula.
Yeah,
which is
it's really
kind of
weird.
which kind of started turning me off actually on the Marvel movies when I realized that the movies are being exposition for the next movie.
Yeah, it's just an investment in further movies.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and this
yeah.
idea of connecting everything to a multiverse is a bit pernicious to me, and it needs to be cut off at the roots, and not for everything. 'Cause I think some things it works. There is a Marvel universe, and it totally is cool that they've been able to build upon that. But it's not the only universe, and it shouldn't be the only thing you're trying to do. And everybody's trying to create all these, but Halloween 3 was ahead of the curve in a way, because once again, they called it Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. Now today it's a total
Yes.
trend, and a bad one, to have every fucking movie title something something, and then the subtitle, the something of the
Yeah,
something
that's
something.
true.
And I hate it. It's like, every fucking movie has to do this. but it's not. It's kind of an old tradition in some ways. But Halloween 3 was one that Season of the Witch that wasn't commonly done then, and so the Season of the Witch was the add-on to let people know that it was not a Michael Myers movie. It should have just been called
Yeah.
Season of the Witch.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Underneath that
Exactly.
Halloween 3.
Do you think it would have been more successful nowadays,
yeah,
given the
Yeah,
current?
yeah. I think then it would have been more successful because people it would have been perceived as a separate horror movie. So audiences would have gone in with a different expectation of it. And
No,
and
no,
they
no.
would have been
Yeah,
Do you think? But do you think
now.
it would be successful now if they were to do
Yeah,
something like
yeah,
that?
totally, absolutely. Well, I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think if they
Yeah,
did,
me too.
yeah, I do think so because there, like you said, there are all these Conjuring and haunting movies, and which I've never seen any of. There's just too many of them. But yeah, I think you could totally do that under the rubric of Halloween. But people do want, people want to see Michael Myers doing this stuff. They want to see Freddy Krueger. They want to see Jason, in a way. And I always liked the Halloween series because to me it was a little bit about more than that. That's why I like the first Halloween so much. I was talking with Audrey about this because she'd rewatched it, and then I sent her that clip of the audience reaction watching Halloween, the first one,
Yeah.
which is amazing. And that's what I remember going to the movies and horror movies. People screaming nonstop from start to end. The audience screaming. And I don't go to horror movies that much anymore, so I don't know if audiences do that anymore. But they sure did then. And every opening night for Friday the 13th movie was just like a scream fest, and it was so much fun for that reason, and they were scary in that way, so
But you also sent a recording for Halloween 3, and so there's just some guy in the audience going, "Where's Michael
which I found
Myers?"
out was not a real
Okay,
afterwards.
that's what I was thinking too. I'm like,
I
anyone
thought
could
it
have
was
made
so,
this.
but I did hear people murmuring that, so it would not have been too far from the I can imagine. I've heard people. I've read reports of people booing it when it came out. So
Right.
I certainly believe audiences more non-genteel suburban audiences, than what I saw with a bunch of dopey kids, were probably like, "Where's Michael Myers? What's going on? I brought my date." But so yeah, it definitely. But that's what I love about it. I wouldn't like it if it had Michael Myers. I wouldn't care about it. I wouldn't be talking about Halloween
Nah.
2 or Halloween
We it
4.
it also it wouldn't meld a cult with technology, which is the most interesting thing to me about this
Yes.
movie.
Yes. That is
I mean,
yeah,
obviously.
well, that is the coolest thing about it, and by the way, I should mention that in Life is Strange 1 and 2, you know, um, I have included flyers for Connell Cochran's Halloween parade. So
Excellent.
both games have Halloween 3 references in actually.
I love
Bring all
it.
the kiddies.
Yeah, because it gets a little Wicker Man-ish,
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
it preys on people's fascination with Stonehenge because, like, we see a little news clip in the beginning of the movie about how there's a rock missing, a blue stone missing from Stonehenge. Obviously, later we find out where it went, and Connell makes this like amazing, like, oh, we've amazing statement about it, like, oh, we had a hell of a time getting it
You
here.
wouldn't believe how we got it here. And
Yeah.
it's one of the greatest bits of exhibition I've ever heard because you don't need to explain it. You just need to know that it was a pain. And the way he says it, you accept however he did it, they did it. I,
Oh yeah, I don't need to know.
well,
But
there's a review of the time, and it shows you how critics how myopic they are. There was a review that actually criticizes the film. They go, well, in a film when they transport a Stonehenge, well, the stone from Stonehenge, without explaining what kind of film you're in for. I'm like, yeah,
magic.
magic.
He's a
It's a film
witch.
about
Yeah.
fucking witchcraft.
It's season of the
Yeah,
witch. I
exactly.
mean, what's so interesting about Stonehenge is that there's stories coming out like just recently about how they're pretty sure those rocks as bluestones have were moved from Wales
Oh,
5,000 years ago.
yeah.
Were
So
removed from Wales?
yeah, that
Oh,
Stonehenge
Wales,
was
the country.
yes.
No,
Yeah, it
no,
was set up.
no.
Oh,
Whales.
the
I was
ocean.
like, Wales.
The
Whales in the
no,
ocean.
I was like, what?
They're-
whales strapped these rocks to their backs.
no, it's like
Now
giant
we
whale.
know how they did it. It
No,
was the
it's-
whales
Orca.
carrying, of course, duh.
No, it's giant. It's giant whale gallstones. Is what it is.
Oi! Those are some big whales. But yeah, I mean, if you think about like no one knew how it got there. What's a line from nobody knows what they were doing. Uh, but science is showing that, yeah, like Stonehenge about 5,000 years ago was like these rocks were moved from Wales. So in a way, like Stonehenge has always been moving around, and here it is. It moves to Northern California, to Eureka, or wherever the
Well, they
fuck they're
filmed
supposed to
it in
be, really.
Loleta,
Loletta, yeah,
California. I know that, and up near
that's by
that's by
Eureka.
it's by Eureka, right? And
Yeah. I would love to make a field trip.
I was going to because I knew it was Northern California, and I was Google recently to see where it was at, and I didn't realize it was that far up. But it's right by the redwood forest and everything, so it actually is it's 4 hours away.
Let's do it.
Yeah, we should do it because I would love to go up there and just check it out. And it looks like it's a nice 101 trip anyway. So I want to see that factory and just leave it. I'm gonna take a silver shamrock logo and just leave it somewhere on the street.
Oh, that music haunted my dreams.
It haunted immediately. You knew, even as a kid, though, when I saw the theater, you knew that this was going to become an iconic theme that was never
yes.
going to leave your psyche. And that's once again, like that's something about Halloween 3. Like that's part of its legacy, is this silver shamrock theme, which is London bridges falling down basically. And Tommy Lee Wallace is the singer actually. And his voice is speeded up because Tommy Lee Wallace does all the voices, audio voices in all the Carpenter films. For the DJs, the FM, he does the voice of the
like in the fog.
and he does the announcer, the big Halloween giveaway. That's Tommy Lee Wallace,
Yeah.
and he's the announcer in Halloween in the first Halloween on TV, and the announcer in the fog for the various radio promos.
Right. And you know, Tom Atkins is also in the fog. And if we can talk about Tom Atkins
Yes,
for just a
we
second,
should.
which I always want to. Okay, what's the deal with him always getting the young chicks in these
He's
movies?
Yeah,
hot.
I was kind of grossed
Because he's
out.
hot.
Is he?
He's hot.
Is he though?
Is he?
Is he?
Well, I think
See?
he's. I mean, I would say. I mean, to me, Stacey Nelkin watching the movie, she looks like she's in her mid 30s, and he's in his 40s, late 40s. So I don't see the huge age gap.
He
is
looked
it?
like
You
he
tell
was
me.
in 50s.
She
looked like
looks
he
like
was
she's
in
in her
50.
20s.
I thought she was in her 30s then, but I could be. I don't have any sense. So yeah,
She definitely looks like she's in her 20s with her little gelfling face.
but
Adorable.
that's actually what she looks like. She has a gelfling face. She was going to be in
Yeah.
Blade Runner, you know, and she was and she lost the part.
Gorgeous.
Her screen test is on the making of the Dangerous Days, though.
Well, here's something unpopular to bring up. She was also involved with Woody Allen when she was underage.
She's the basis for Manhattan. She's the basis for that, and yeah,
What?
she's actually the basis for the character, and she's a really good actress too. And it's too bad she never really had the great a good career she should have. Because I've seen her. It's funny because it's kind of crazy because I actually seen Stacey Nelkin in 3 movies in the theater when she came in. Halloween 3, Up the Academy, the Mad Magazine horrible movie, which somebody should do. I hope for your show because it is such a bizarro film.
We'll have you back.
That's going to be it's going to require some really, because it's just a bizarre, directed by Robert Downey Sr., bizarro film. But she's in that, and also Going Ape with Tony Danza and the Penguin. Help me. Louis De Palma.
Danny DeVito.
Oh.
And Tony Danza with Monkeys and Stacey Nelkin. So I've seen 3 Stacey Nelkin movies in the theater in the 80s that were at the same time. But she talks very highly of Halloween 3. She said she loved making the film. She said the sex scene was, she said that Tom Atkins was great. She loved working with him, and he was a very humble and gentle guy. And
he's like sucks on her nipple.
And she said she had a no nipple clause in her contract.
Yeah,
she states that.
That makes sense then.
Yeah,
good.
And so
that was the first scene they shot, though. So like she had to immediately basically take her clothes off and get intimate with the huge Tom Atkins, whose head is so much bigger than her head.
Yeah,
I noticed that too.
Did you notice the size of his head?
Yeah, well, I did in the theater because as kids we're like, yeah,
Stop that.
Insert sex scene in a horror movie.
Welcome
to the 80s. You know,
must have sex.
You know, and
he has the same scene in The Fog, basically.
He does score Jamie Lee Curtis.
Jamie Lee Curtis.
He does. He was a lucky genre man in the 80s. And Tom Atkins has been around for a while. If you want, one of my favorite other genre films, from 1980, the Ninth Configuration, directed by William Peter Blatty. Have you seen that? Has anybody seen that?
No.
Oh my
No.
God.
Sounds familiar.
You must watch The Ninth Configuration, a very huge cult movie that was released under multiple titles, financed by Coca-Cola for $5 million, basically, and shot in this castle. Basically, the premise is that Jesus Christ is the Gothic Dracula, or Dracula is the Gothic Jesus Christ, I should say.
Yes, I love
It's a
it.
brilliant fucking movie. And you have to accept that William Peter Blatty believes in God and the devil, and his films all
Okay.
reflect that belief. But within that, he's very fucking nuanced and very funny. And so the Ninth Configuration, the script is just fucking one of my favorite scripts. It's like a Marx Brothers movie meets a biker movie, meets the most existential. It's unexplainable, but it's Tom Atkins and Stacy Keach and Scott Wilson, and this is amazing. Joe Spinell, amazing cast. Jason Miller from The Exorcist, but yeah, highly recommend it. You'll be blown away by it. But Tom Atkins is in that, and he's great, and he's been around for a while. And the first time I saw him really was in Escape from New York, in a Carpenter film, and this was really his only leading role. But he's great in Night of the Creeps too, another '80s.
Fantastic.
Yeah, he's fantastic, and I think he plays Detective Carpenter in that. I think. Nudge,
Oh,
nudge.
There's so many references in all these movies to each other. Like Halloween keeps showing up in this movie.
What-
They're going to show Halloween 1 for the kids, and that's why you have to stay tuned, because at 9 o'clock they're going to show a special commercial that's going to explode your head.
Yeah, and I love that in the film. That's one of my, and I love that they included that in the film. I thought that was a really brilliant way to let people know. And actually, if they would have been smarter, they would have started the film with that commercial showing Halloween on TV, and then you pull back or something. You know what I mean? And you see that it's just on TV.
Huh. That would have tied the franchise.
I've got like all
together,
these
you're
ideas that
right,
they just
yeah.
didn't use at the time. And
They didn't
they didn't
you.
ask. It was a shame, because I really thought.
And you were 13.
But I knew I knew what they needed to do to make it work, and they just didn't do it. They didn't, like Grindhouse. It bombed because they didn't explain what a grindhouse was to people when they came to see the movie. They needed to explain what you were going to see. They should have started going to a drive-in theater or movie, and then start the movies, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, Tom Atkins is great in this, and he's actually really good, because the character, and once again, the movie probably didn't do well, because at the time, 80s horror movies were directed at teens, and they starred teens, and they featured teens, and this film doesn't feature teenagers. And it's the only
He's just an alcoholic doctor.
alcoholic doctor who's a deadbeat dad.
Yeah, that is the saddest scene in the beginning, when the sad dad scene. Like his ex-wife accuses him of drinking and doctoring, and he lets his kids down by buying second-rate Ben Cooper masks.
Yeah, he's not. But I like that, because it's real. Once again, it's kind of like that. It's a Carpenter kind of nihilistic kind of touch of and Atkins is really good. And there's a scene right after he punches through the gut of one of the drone guards.
Oh yeah, and all the Orange Julius comes
and
out.
you watch.
Well, or is it egg?
Whatever it
I
is.
thought it was Orange Julius, actually.
It looks like orange slime. It looks totally like orange slime. But his face, he's so beaten, and he can't. And his face, it's actually one of my. It's actually brilliant acting. You just look at his face after the guards pull him up. He's got no fight in him, and his face is like, I just punched my hand through a guy who's got goo.
Yeah,
and
completely defeated.
He looks totally like, I am defeated and lost, and he's really, and so he's the movie wouldn't work if he wasn't believable in that way, and that he's not. He's kind of like this gruff guy that you like following around. And he also, once again, he's also in the other anthology film Creepshow as the dad, the abusive dad to Stephen King's son.
He's a hero with faults.
Yeah.
And he's got heroic moments in this movie where he does some amazing things, but ultimately he kind of fails.
Pretty much. But at least he tries to save the kids. We couldn't save his own kids. He tries to save the kids at the end. But this is part of the script problem. And Carpenter, to me, always had this problem with his scripts, is that they're so good. The ideas are so brilliant. And Carpenter gets lazy, and sometimes the budgets come into play where they don't follow through. Like Escape from New York is the most high concept fucking idea of all time.
Yeah.
And I saw this, my brother actually took me to see. I got to cut class to go see Escape from New York on opening day.
Awesome, brother.
Yeah, for the time, I was very lucky to go see all these movies and without restriction. But even and I love Escape from New York scene, and but even then I was like, man, this is such a good idea. There should be more to this than this chase scene at the end. There should be more action scenes. There should be more. I've always thought that way. Like, the only film that really pays off for me, Carpenter, is The Thing and Big Trouble in Little China, in a way, giving you everything. But Halloween 3 needs more. It needs a bigger budget. It needs to explain who Connell Cochran is. That's what it doesn't do. It does
Yeah.
not explain who.
Is he thousands of years old?
Yeah, I think he is.
That's what I took from it.
Yeah,
Yeah, because he talks about his Celtic lands and 3,000 years ago on Samhain.
yeah. I assume he's the spirit of Samhain, or he's the avatar. He's
He's some old druid.
yeah, and they just need to and explain this. And I just saw this interview with the makeup artist Tom Berman. It's funny because he was actually talking about that, how he didn't like the ending, didn't like how there was no explanation, and he had pitched to Carpenter to have Cochran turn into like this pumpkin, to be like the spirit of to show he was like the spirit of Halloween. And I mean, and it sounds like that you got to be careful with how that could be really dopey, or it could be really cool depending on how you did it, like a pumpkin head kind of thing. Yeah, that could be really cool and scary. If you saw like this creepy silhouette of this pumpkin head figure, vanishing at the end, instead of what you do see, which is like kind of like this glowing guy, the silver-faced guy who glows and disappears. But apparently Carpenter hated that. He was angry. He got pissed off at Berman for suggesting that. And he told Berman to mind his own business. But it's a better idea than what they do, in the movie, because they really don't give Cochran, kind of what he is, and that's in the ending is kind of a bunch of Deus Machinas fallen together.
Yeah,
in a
way. He just fades away.
Yeah, but
I think Klingon's gonna understand this one. I was hoping that maybe he would just sort of like turn into Mackenzie Crook from Britannia at the end. Like he turns into Veron, the ancient druid priest.
Oh my gosh, you would have to lose like 40 to 50 pounds.
Wow, yeah, Veron's quite skinny.
Well, they could have done. They could have done any number of things that would have been cool. They could have had a transform into a druid. I mean, that would have been a great idea. Whatever. They could have explained what he was doing there, or they could have, they could have had a couple more exposition beats. And so, one of the only things that's actually transposed from Nigel Neal's script, of course, is Connell Cochran's big Halloween speech to Atkins.
Yeah. He explains why.
Explains the what he's doing there, the history of Samhain, and
I was watching it and listening to it, but I still didn't understand why he was doing what he's doing, other than he probably just didn't like kids. And then
sacrifice.
A blood for sacrifice. Yeah,
it's time.
What was he
going
to
get?
Get?
Are aligned. It's time again.
Well, I mean, Stonehenge was most likely used for fertility rituals. Actually, burial ground and also fertility rituals. Like at midsummer and midwinter, the sun lines up in certain areas, so it was like used for rituals.
So it was a druid. So he was killing all these kids for a druidic sex party. Is that what we're gonna have?
Yeah, totally. Total fertility ritual. Like water the earth with blood, and so the crops will come up again.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be a great. I mean, it would be a great double feature with Wicker Man, actually, because they have a very similar kind of vibe. And if they would have played up that more, that this was. I mean, I frankly, I saw it when I was, 13 when I saw it in theater, and I got it. I didn't need, I got it. He's sacrificing the children to continue the druidic spirit of whatever they're doing. Like I didn't,
gotta feed the earth.
Yeah, it made sense to me. Like that, you could have gone more like who he was, etc. But I thought that was and he's also saying the greatest trick of all on the children, and it's great. It's like the contempt for the kids is kind of a great aspect of it.
It's fun.
And that's why this
locusts coming out of their heads.
Yeah, and Nigel Neal didn't write that scene either. That wasn't in the original, which I'm kind of curious. I've been trying to get a copy of the original script, and there is a copy of the Nigel Neal archives in Wales, but it's almost impossible to find a copy of that script. It's the holy grail for me in a way, just to see his original script, what he wrote, and I'm sure it was probably a better movie. A better horror movie, and more subtle, of course, than and apparently Tommy Lee Wallace, the director, loved it. and he would have been very happy to shoot that version.
One last point I'd like
Yeah.
to bring up, and I guess this has nothing to do with the script ultimately, because you're saying how off script they went. But I've heard that the ending, they filmed multiple endings
I do
to
not
this
know
movie.
about that at all. I don't think they did.
Okay.
I'm not sure that they did. I think I think this ending was pretty much, maybe there might have been some more gore scenes, but as far as I know, the only ending they've ever shot was that ending with him screaming "Stop it." I don't think that there might have been more gore beats or something, but
Half
Really
the
like the
world.
ending.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely.
yeah, I think it's good, but I think once again it's a little bit of that kind of Carpenter, a little bit too much of the Carpenter nihilism in lieu of a real ending.
Mhm.
You know, like and even as a kid, I was like, what? He's calling up each network and they're stopping the shows because he's calling them. This is dumb.
Who is he? Yeah.
Right
Would
there,
they?
the
Would they
logic is
really?
so it doesn't make any sense. It would have been, like I said, I think there would have been 3 or 4 different cooler ways you could have done it. You could have showed a bunch of kids watching the TV, zooming in. You could have cut. You know what I mean? There could have been a lot of ways. You could have shown, big panning, a long shot panorama of the city with the lights going on and off or something. You know what I mean? Like there could have been a few different creepier ways, because I know the audience was not satisfied with it. In the theater. My audience was not satisfied with that ending.
But I thought that they were doing a homage to the original ending of Invasion of the Body
Totally.
Snatchers.
They totally
So-
were, which is why
Yeah.
13-year-old kids in that audience didn't
Oh.
care.
Because I kind of thought that was kind of cool, because
I did. I got it. I love it. Once again, I got it.
because like I was one of those people that, like, when I was younger, again, when I was more into this stuff and really like, I really kind of like the weird nihilist, ending. And that's why when you mentioned Grindhouse, when Robert Rodriguez's ending for his Planet Terror, I kind of like that when it just became like this weird medieval sort of like wasteland that you have to kind of deal with, and it just kind of ends.
yeah.
Like you don't really get stories like that anymore. Like there always has to be some kind of resolution for the character's stories. They just can't continue on, is that?
Yeah, and that's where and certainly that is Carpenter's métier. And I mean, Escape from New York has that. Halloween has that ending. Escape from New York has that ending.
Yeah.
The Thing has that ending. The only one, and even Big Trouble in Little China, which has probably the best ending of any Carpenter film in the 80s, has that inconclusive ending.
Yeah.
So yeah, They Live, Prince of Darkness, all of them end with this tentative, not knowing what
Prince of Darkness was a sad ending for me. I thought that ending was super sad.
It's sad, but it's creepy and scary, and one of his best endings because it does have this really creepy, that video flashback memory thing.
Yeah.
Which is really creepy. And
just that door closing, like the mirror closing as the hand is reaching up to kind of escape, and that person's the person sacrificed themselves. I was just like, oh, and then the mirror closes. I was just like, it was so sad.
Yeah, Lisa Blunt is a really good character.
Yeah.
Doesn't deserve it. But once again, that's a real Nigel Neal movie. Prince of Darkness is the most Nigel Neal Carpenter movie. And then Tommy Lee Wallace does a really good job in Halloween 3 of actually also, because it's got Dean Cundy, the cinematographer, from the same cinematographer from the first Halloweens and The Thing, and one of my favorite cinematographers. So it's the thing about Halloween 3, even though it's not part of the Halloween Michael Myers verse, it looks like a Halloween movie. And it looks like it's in that universe because it's got that.
It's got all the in jokes.
The Panavision widescreen compositions are very similar. Tommy Lee Wallace is definitely, aping the kind of widescreen style. It's got the music, obviously Carpenter's music. And of course, does everybody know where Jamie Lee Curtis shows up in the movie?
Well, that's to be debated.
Oh, I can. Well, I know.
She says it's not her.
It is her. And I've read it. She does the voice of the announcer telling for the. She does the voice of the town announcer, telling that it's time for Santa Maria to close down. Play it. It's there's no voice like that. It's Jamie Lee Curtis. It's absolutely.
It really does sound.
It is her, and and it is her. That for. I've read that she did the voice of the operator, but I don't know that voice. But she is the voice of Santa Maria, telling it to close down.
I think the operator sounds like her, but she's gone on record as saying it's not her.
Okay, well, I'm gonna. But the voice over the town, that's got to be her.
Yeah.
And because she also
to the internet.
Yeah, we got to check that out. And because she also does the voice of the telling people that they have the option to be terminated in Escape from New York, and she does the narration for
Yeah.
Escape from New York, which I didn't learn that until like not too many years ago, which is always shocking to me. That her voice is such
Well,
a big part of that, and I never connected those two. But when I saw Halloween 3, I always thought to me like, hey, that's Jamie Lee Curtis.
thank you so much, Christian, for joining us. This has been so much fun.
It really has. Like, this
And,
was a really good conversation.
Super deep dive
thank
into the
you.
mask.
Thank you for having me, and happy Halloween.
I keep, for whatever reason, I keep thinking, like, whenever I hear it, I keep thinking, the song from Nightmare Before Christmas. I don't know why this
Oh
is
yeah, well, it's got
Halloween.
this,
This
I know.
is Halloween.
that papa, yeah.
Sing song.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
really weird. I always wonder if they did that on purpose, but whatever.
You know, you hear that jingle 14 times in this movie.
Wow.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
And you hear it once, and it's gonna be in your head for the rest of your life. So it doesn't matter how many times you hear it.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And it's fucking trapped.
Can't
in there.
remember how the song goes though. All I
Happy,
can
happy
remember is the
Halloween, 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 happy, happy Halloween, silver
8 more
shower.
days till Halloween.
London Bridge is falling down, falling down.
Okay.
London Bridge is falling down, silver shower.
Hey kids, it's time. It's time.
Yeah, that it's time. Freaked me out. Nope.
Tommy Lee Wallace has
That
got a
is
great voice for that. He's got that great syrupy like DJ voice, and yeah. But like I said, the best part of the movie is Colonel Cochrane's speech. It's a magnificent speech. It's a great speech. I wish Dan Harley had more films in the 80s. He got a nice little run with Halloween 3 and RoboCop. But I would have liked to have seen him in a lot more things. He's so damn good in the movie.
He's like in the tradition of Christopher Lee and Vincent Price. You know, he kind of occupies that space.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, Christian, where can people find out more about you?
I am everywhere.
And yet nowhere.
And nowhere,
It's so
which is
weird.
how I like it. Those who want me know where to find me. They will find me.
Wow.
Just play his game.
Yeah,
Okay?
well, you can. I'd invite if you're not familiar with the video game series Life is Strange, you can always start there. You can go to YouTube and watch all the wonderful reaction videos, the commentaries to get a sense of what the game is and how people respond to it. I'm also on the social media thing that starts with a T. And you can find me there under Christian Divine. And otherwise, I'm working on 2 NDA projects that I hope to be talking about soon. So maybe by the time for the next podcast.
Can you talk about?
come
Can you talk
back.
about what media space they're in? Is it a movie? Is it a video game? Games. Okay, cool. That's awesome.
NDA game project
That's
coming
awesome.
soon.
Both 2 of them? Oh,
2 of them coming soon.
can't wait.
Woo!
Actually,
Halloween 2.
Actually, just so you know, I've played Deus Ex and I played Doom and I've played a lot of the games that you were part of. I didn't want to like gush a little too much, but I'm on another
gush enough.
Gosh,
because I'm on another video game podcast, and so I know who you are.
Really?
And when Odessa said that we were having, I was like, what? So yeah, it was a good honor for being able to speak to you. So thank you so much.
Have you played Life is Strange? Have you checked it out? You haven't played it yet.
I haven't played it yet. But I definitely will. Definitely will.
You'll dig it. And it's the only video game that's got a reference to Russ Meyer and Faster Pussycat Kill Kill. I don't know what more you need.
There you go.
Sexy.
You've done well.
I was going to pay all my dues with this game as much as possible.
All right, we are Speakeasily versus the 80s. You can find us on Facebook, Speakeasily Show. We have a special people's group on Facebook that you can get on and share dirty photos of yourself on the toilet listening to our show. Thank you, Shecky, for that.
I love it.
Toilet snake.
Toilet snake. All right, we have merch. You can wear us on your body.
On your butts.
Wear us on your butts. Actually, no, we don't have like booty shorts yet, but we do have.
You lied to me.
Shirts and cups. Well, I just told you to put the shirt on your butt.
Oh, I guess that counts.
I'm not responsible for the rest.
Okay.
Find out more at speakeasily.tv. You've certainly been an audience. Good night.